City of New Franklin. Tonight we're going to start off with a public hearing, and this is for a agricultural district renewal application. Pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, section 929.02, a renewal application for property within the city limits is an agricultural district and requests the renewal application to be approved by the City of New Franklin. Can we do roll call, Kelly?
Mr. Cox?
Present.
Mr. Schaefer?
Present.
Mrs. Jones? Present. Mr. Powell?
Present.
Mr. Stiles?
Present.
Mr. Wolf?
Present.
Mr. Almond?
Present. All right. So as mentioned, this is a agricultural district renewal application. This is for Teresa Persice at 438 Center Road, parcel 23-03491. We're going to move to public comments on this. If we have any.
I'll speak if you'd like. It's my property. The United States lost over 2 million acres of farmland last year. So I appreciate the fact that New Franklin recognizes and supports farms.
Any other public comment? All right, closing public comments. Do I have a motion for the approval of the renewal of this agricultural district?
Thank you. Second.
We got first, we have a second. We have a first and a second.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
We have a first and a second.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
All right, that closes our public hearing. Next, we're going to start our committee meetings. This is for the pieces of legislation that we have before us for tonight. We're going to start with the Finance Committee. Mr. Cox.
Thank you. We will open the Finance Committee at 6:02, and Mr. Stiles will be taking the stage.
Sure. First up is resolution number 25R20. A resolution approving a change order to Sistones Excavating Services LLC for the 2024 Overture Way culvert replacement project and authorizing a then now purchase order for payment from Singh and declaring an emergency. Basically, while they were digging, they ran into some problems with Dominion Gas, which caused a delay, and Summit County Sanitary Services also requested a change along the way. We need to, the work's already been done. We're going to try to pass approval for this. OPWC is going to cover 90% of that change order, and altogether the project is still in under budget of what we originally planned, so it's doing pretty well. Comments?
Yeah, just like I say, thanks for cleaning up the clerical thing that I mentioned on there. Yeah, I think we're still under budget. That's the real win.
I got a, is it okay to waive the free?
Yes.
All right, very good. Moving on to 25R21, a resolution authorizing New Franklin to enter into an agreement with Sun Life for Life, voluntary life and voluntary vision insurance for New Franklin's health insurance plan and declaring an emergency. Would you over this, Mr. Mayor, you got any comments about this?
This was a standard renewal, and the good news is there was no increase in premium. So this is a provider for our life insurance for the employees.
And we haven't had an increase in this premium since at least 2021.
Waive the free? Great. Then this closes the Finance Committee at 6:04.
Thank you. Our next committee is Community Development. Mr. Schaefer.
We'll open the Community Development Committee at 6:04. Resolution 25-R-22. Resolution authorizing New Franklin to enter into an agreement with Envision Group LLC to serve as planning consultant for New Franklin and declaring an emergency. Mr. Mayor, would you like to speak on this?
Yes, we've outsourced planning for a long time. We've had different vendors, and we used Insight for a period of time, and that primarily was Jennifer Six. There was a change in ownership of that business, and some of the personnel changed. They did a nice job. We coupled that for a period with some lobbying, which good efforts, and you really can't always judge them by whether you got the funds or not. They did what they said they were going to do. The funds didn't materialize in some areas, but so that contract went through the end of 2024. And I did not ask you to renew that contract. It was at $5,000 a month at that point. I didn't ask you to renew that because I just felt we needed a little stricter focus and maybe a different team to assist us. So as we got into 2025, I had some discussions again. Jennifer, I provided the council with some information about the Envision Group, and she is aligned with them as well. It's not that she is the be-all and end-all, but she's been here and she understands, and she's been effective in the past. She was on board with the $4 million water project, helped us put that together. And so she has, I think, a historical intimate knowledge of New Franklin and what our strengths and weaknesses are and what our needs are. Her teaming with Envision, we got to know them when they made a proposal for the 619 corridor project, and they were strong. The decision was made between the AMATs and ourselves to go with OHM on that one, but I remember those folks, and so we started some outreach and had some discussions, and they made a proposal, and I think it's a really strong one. I think the beauty of it is there's more strength in that group, the combined resources. It is a 12-month contract, terminable at will. But this time around, that we requested and received specific timelines, specific deliverables of what's going to happen and when is it going to happen. And the primary focus initially, and I think we'll kind of know where we are after 6 months, it is the State Route 93. We know that the sewer will be in the ground next summer. So we've done a lot of exploratory work there. We've identified parcels. We've reached out to property owners. We've done some door-to-door. We've tried to get a gauge who wants to do what where. What we haven't done is any more specific projected planning from a planner's standpoint, what might be appropriate where. There are areas that aren't going to change, as we know. There's there's facilities that are there, they're going to be there. They're not going anywhere. So this is, when you look through their proposal, this is what this would be about. I think these next 6 months, it's a critical period because the anticipation is we'll go out for bids in the fall. And it would be nice to know when we get to that point, some really concrete ideas about and suggestions from the standpoint of people who do this for a living of what might be possible there. In conjunction with what the folks have already indicated to us along the comprehensive plan of different things they'd like to see. So without question, we need to outsource the development. We don't have that type of expertise on board here. I think this is a really good group to lead us on this. It doesn't include lobbying, but we've been doing the lobbying on our own. It's $1,000 less than we were spending per month last year. We saved some money in the first 3 months of this year. We didn't engage anybody, so I would ask you to approve.
I have some comments on this. I read through the proposal. I believe that when we were with Insight, there was another company that was involved in that $5,000 a month. I think we were only paying Insight $2,500.
Exactly, that's what I mentioned. It was $2,500 Insight and $2,500 Gray.
So, and I also read down through here, and, I see where they've noted all these things. I think this is a little early for us to start spending this kind of money. But, they still have things on here like track the water line development. Why would they be tracking the water?
That's in the second 6 months.
Well, I understand it, but why would they be tracking it? It has nothing to do with Manchester.
Well, we're not engaging them specifically for State Route 93. We're engaging them for development purposes. So while the primary focus is going to be on 93, we also want them available for input with what's going on 619, particularly since that water line development is moving along. And we also have the separate study of the 619 corridor. So they're not exclusive to 93. We want them to be available for for those purposes as well. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep interrupting, I'm just trying to
No,
respond.
that's fine, you can comment however you like. I just don't see the need to do this at this point in time. A lot of these things, I think that we as a city can send out letters and say, hey, keep me updated what's happening in front of your property. The city doesn't own these properties, so for us to present to these people what we think should go there or not go there, I think is beyond our scope as a city. I think we update them on what zoning options they have and what their property can be used for. Then it's up to them to reach out to different people. They can reach out to the Akron Home Builders Association, and there's many builders up there that do residential and commercial. I just don't see where some of this is within the city's scope of what we should be doing. So I will be a no-go on this.
Yeah. When do you think would be the right time to do it if it's not now?
I'm not sure with what's listed on here that I could a yes vote on this at all.
So you don't think we should use a consultant to assist us in potential planning for, say, Route 93?
I would think that a consultant would be a decent idea at a particular time in the future, once we have some things in. But, you know, they've got what I would consider a bunch of fluff on here. They've got listed where, help you decide where future water lines and sewer lines can go. We don't need to pay for that. The utility companies can help us with that. Once we know that the contractor has a parcel in mind and they have a draft, the utility companies will pretty much dictate where the existing line is and where we can come, where they'll be able to feed those properties. We don't need to pay a consulting company to do that.
You mentioned again sometime in the future. Do you think there'd be a time in the future you'd want to do this?
There may, but I would want to see a revised thing here and take some of this, what I consider fluff out of here.
When would be the time to do it if it's not now?
If you're trying to pinpoint it, Mr. Mayor, I am not going to give you a date until, number one, the sewer's not in. We don't have a firm timeline on that.
Get a pretty firm timeline on that. It's going to be next summer.
Well, go ahead and update me on what that we were supposed to have the sewer department in to talk to us about.
I can report that I plan to report that on my mayor's report, but I can speak to it now if you'd like.
Well, that's going to be one of the questions that needs to be answered for me to even think about agreement. And I'm one of seven. You may have 6 other people up here that say this is the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah. And I don't mean to be quarrelsome, I just want to make sure I understand your position. On that point, since you've raised it, we met with the Southern County Public Health, and the Ohio Revised Code and the Ohio Administrative Code does require residential premises to connect to sewer when sewer becomes available. Our conversation with them was, well, we have 2 phases to this sewer project, and the first phase is going to the package plant, it's really not going to the wastewater plant. And we asked them whether or not they could defer any mandatory tie-ins until after phase 2 is done, and they've agreed to that. And I do have that in writing. So there's not going to be any requirements relative to tie-ins on the first phase of the State Route 93 project. The phase 2 of this project, we're probably, the sewer will be in the ground in the summer of 26. Phase 2, if things go well, and we get funding, you save yourself some time here on my mayor's report. One of the pieces of funding that we were hoping for was another $3 million from the federal government from fiscal year 2025 appropriations, and if you can follow the newspaper, that's not going to happen anyway. So those funds aren't coming. So the city's going to have to look in a different direction for the balance of funding for phase 2, which I think is available. I think that can be done. But even that being the case, optimistically, we're talking about the summer of 28 before anyone along this line is going to be facing any issues relative to any mandatory tie-ins. We've identified all these properties. I'm going to inform them all of this. Eventually, at some point in time, it's going to happen. but it's something that's not gonna happen for, 3 years down the road, on that note.
What would their options be for paying that?
Well, there's a variety of options, and that, in some cases, there could be a mandatory tie. There's situations in the event somebody just recently put a septic in, they can get some extensions. There's provisions for some financing along those lines too. So those questions need to be answered, but we have 3 years to get those answers, and we will. Here's the situation. I understand the idea that, first of all, nobody's suggesting that the city is going to tell anybody what to do with their land. On the other hand, maybe they want some suggestions. Maybe we know there are some people that are interested because they've reached out to us. I'm not a developer, and I'm not sure whether to tell them this makes sense for an Aldi or this makes sense for 30 attached single-family dwellings. All right, in that particular location. There's people that do this for a living, and have studied, and they're engaged, and have experience in these areas. Now, if we were in a financial situation where it really didn't matter whether we had any additional revenue here or not, then we just let it take its time and let it unfold. But I think everybody in the room knows that's not the case. We're not on fire. It's not an emergency. But we need some development to create these revenue sources. So with that being the case, this is a piece where trained professionals can come in and say, not to tell somebody what they should do, but to say, okay, here's a parcel that maybe this could be this, here's a parcel maybe that could be do that. We've done the letters to the folks a couple times, and phone calls, and knocking on doors. I think we need something more concrete than that. And at the same time, we've been approached by a couple developers who have some interest, landowners who are talking to developers. We don't have that skill and expertise and experience to know who we should necessarily reach out to. But I think it's a combined, as you see the timeline here, is identify everything, talk to owners, have some idea of maybe what would make sense here, okay? I'm not exactly sure what should go across from Fisherman Central with that land, but there's people that want to do something with it. So we get suggestions. There's no mandates here from people that are trained to do this. So that at the end of 6 months, we can say this is what this might look like, and maybe these are some ideas. We don't have to embrace them. I cannot recommend to council that you wait for these things to happen. Because if you wait for them to happen, they will happen 3 or 4 years from now. And or 5 years, or 6 years. And meanwhile, prices are going to continue to go up, and we will continue to be flatlined on revenue until the development comes and some commercial, and we get some income tax as well. So that's why I think at this point this isn't a crazy, wild notion we're going to come in and tell people what to do on the property. It's a proactive idea to try to stay ahead of the game a little bit and be professional about what we're doing development-wise. So that's my thoughts on it.
All right, so thanks for that. One of my concerns is when we've got basically 2 projects wrapped into this. And I know you said we need economic development guidance, but this is really focused specifically on a certain task if you look at their scope of work. And they are labeled out by months. Under month 1, they're looking at the multi-use zoning, and they're looking at some of the stuff that hasn't been put in place yet. And I think maybe, next meeting there's a public hearing on, I think maybe if nothing else, we've already gone 3 months without an economic development group. I don't think another month would hurt us until we get through the zoning project. The other thing is, touching back on the sewer, as you mentioned, there's 50-some properties along Manchester Road, and I don't know how we feel about making people tie into that. And that may be some work we need to do with, I don't know if there's some additional discussion. I know you said they gave us the until phase 2 goes in, but without knowing that, without having a date certain, I know we can't because we don't have the funding for it. I'd just like some more assurances that we're not gonna go out there and force these people to spend tens of thousands of dollars to tie into something that they don't have it. The other thing I'd like to see is, since this is basically two projects put together, can we do this in two different phases, split it into two different proposals, if you will? Because they start on month 7 on here talking about the 619 corridor, and that is still kind of a fluid project. So I'm not sure, I mean, I think I know how that's gonna go, but I'm not sure how that's gonna go. It could be 6 months down the road, and they're into this scope of their work, according to what they have laid out in here. I just don't want them redoing work, and then that costs more money, because it says in here, once, anything above and beyond, there's additional negotiations for compensation and stuff like that. So I'm wondering, do we put this into two different phases, if you will, two different proposals? One for the Manchester corridor, one for the 619 corridor. And then do we pause on this to get through the zoning for our hearing next meeting?
First of all, it's, as I mentioned, it's terminable with 30 days notice. And I indicated we know in about 6 months how we're doing with this and where we are. And so as we approach the end of the 6 months, we'll also have a pretty good idea what's going on in 619 at that point in time. Because we'll know whether or not water line's happening or whether it's not happening. That also dovetails with the conclusion of the planning study that we're doing with OHM in conjunction with AMAX. That's their timeline as well. So we hit that 6 month mark, we're going to know what's going on 619. We'll also know what kind of work product we're getting from these folks. And if we think they're right then to turn their attention and do very similar to 619, what they're talking about doing here, then we already have them on board. If we're not happy with their work, then we can terminate and look elsewhere. In terms of, there's an intention, it's intentional that we talk about the what's going on with zoning. Because you will, no, I won't have to do my mayor's report at all. Tomorrow is planning and zoning, and Mr. Ware will start talking about Article 4 and the zoning districts and the matrix. And you've seen some of that preliminarily. The idea to get away from the B1s and the B2s and get into mixed use, which I've said, it's pretty universal that that's the way to go with zoning. And so we want to track this along together. If we wait, now it's going to take a while. Here's one other point, I almost won't have to speak at all. On April 2nd, we'll have our public hearing here on the subdivision regulations, which the planning and zoning approved unanimously, and which are very, very similar to what we had adopted in Summit County before. So now you're going to turn the planning and zoning is going to turn their attention to the districts, and they're going to have to go through their process and have their public hearings, and then it's going to come to council, and as it should, that's going to take a couple months. So if we wait for all that to happen, it's going to be summertime. And then if you start on this at that point in time is of the essence, in my opinion, on these things. Now, to address another point, if there's a strong feeling on council that we're going to say to the residences on 93 that because of the potential burden to have to tie into sewer, we don't want to put you to that burden. We need to know that now, because we're planning to put a sewer in on 93, okay? So if there's a reservation about doing this because it's going to be a burden because of some potential mandatory tie-ins, well, council's going to have to say that. And then in deference to those 50 homes out there, God bless all of them, I've talked to a lot of them are waiting for sewer. You got 14,000 people here that when they dial 911, they like the ambulance to show up. And they like the road to get paved. And if you don't have some residential and some commercial development in the city, we're not going to be able to retain this same level of services. So this is not, but I guess I'm saying to council, if you feel that strongly that you don't want to burden these 50 homes, tell us now, and we'll pull the plug on the sewer.
So I don't think council said either way whether they're for or against it, but I think it'd be fair for us to know what that burden looks like as far as the cost. You know, are we talking $10,000 per house, are we talking 15, 20? So,
Well, you know the answer to that question.
you know,
What does it cost?
it's gonna be 15 to 20.
Okay, exactly.
So that's what I mean, you know, to somebody that's on a fixed income, I don't know how I mean, is there some, so with the water lines, for instance, you know, we run the water line, we got the $4 million grant, that all went in, and we actually offered some assistance to people to tie into that on the public systems, for people that had systems that they had to have maintained. So are there some grant funds out there we may be able to find, or some assistance to help offset those costs for residents?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I don't know if they're out there or if they aren't. But I will tell you, whether they are or whether they aren't, I have no reservation about making sure that sewer gets in on 93. Because it's not gonna matter to me, but it's gonna matter to my kids and my grandchildren. Everybody sitting out here, all you folks sitting up there, all your children and grandchildren, if that doesn't happen. So I hate the burden to fall on anybody, but you know, it's gonna increase the value of people's property. You know, for some people it's gonna be a hardship, I don't doubt that. You know, sometimes it's just the way things are. So I get it, you know, I don't have a crystal ball to tell you exactly how it's gonna be for every one of these property owners. Maybe somebody's put in a recent septic, I don't know the answer to that. I know there's houses there that can't wait for the sewer. And for those that it's gonna be a hardship for, you know, we've never hesitated to turn over every leaf to see what we can find to be helpful to people when it comes to these kind of things. And I'm sure who's ever sitting up there in council and who's ever sitting in this seat, they'll do that. The good news is these folks are going to have 3 years to think about that. And if their decision is, I can't afford the $20,000, well, they're going to have other options. Because there's probably somebody who's going to want that property. So I'm not insensitive to it, but it's not a major concern for me.
So since the sewer line project has changed shape a handful of times, I know the phase one gets it down to the Zellray plant. Where is phase two incorporated in?
Zellray will be converted to a pump station. And then there'll be a line that'll go up to State Park Road, and eventually will go up to Vanderhoof, and we'll go up to the
And then the
wastewater
line,
treatment
the
plant.
homes on Vanderhook, that's gonna be a pressurized force line through there.
Correct,
So there won't be any tie-ins on Vanderhook.
that's true.
Okay.
Phase one is close to happening, and we've got guarantees that there's gonna be no assessments or mandatory tie-ins. Phase two looks like funding's up in the air, at least 3 years away. That's gonna come before council for approval for phase two, right? It's not something we're looking at now or have to decide today. That's,
Well, I think phase one is still gonna have the opportunity for people to tie in, and then that's that
they
3-year,
can tie-in, but no mandatory tie-ins.
not until that 3-year window or something you mentioned.
Yes.
Then there'll be a mandatory tie-in one.
Phase one, with phase, post phase one, there'll be one. Or we have to approve phase.
Once phase two is completed, then Summit County Public Health will start sending notices to the residences on the area where the sewer was laid, 93. And talk to them about their requirement to tie in.
So phase one goes in, we get that done, nobody's getting any assessment.
Correct,
We have to approve phase two and complete that project before Summit County wants to
that's correct.
cause mandatory. So phase two may never happen.
Well, that's possible.
I would have to think that if phase two doesn't happen at the end of 2028, they're gonna come back and make people tie in phase one. There's probably gonna be some clause there that's not gonna get away scot.
Yeah, they won't let it go forever. And there's going to come a point in time where we're going to want phase two to happen because there, you know, even though there's really quite significant capacity available at Zellray, it's not inexhaustible. So depending on what kind of development happens up here, there'll come a point in time perhaps where we start reaching capacity on Zellray, and we're going to have to make that happen. So I think we're certainly going to want to make phase two happen for that reason. But again, it's 3 years out.
So with the sewer and possible mandatory tie-ins, I'm 100% in favor of moving forward with the sewer project. It's necessary. It needs to happen in our community. It needs to happen down Manchester Road. We've been talking about sewer for 20 years. For phase 2 to happen in 2028 is hopeful, which realistically means probably 2033 before it actually happens, before the funding becomes available, before all the planning and everything else along those lines. But as far as the sewer goes, I'm 100% in favor. To get back to the original subject of Resolution 25R22, did you request any proposals from any other firms?
I did not.
My concern is, and as you mentioned before, Jennifer Six has worked with us for many years and has done a fine job as far as I know. And any experience I've had with her has been good. But sometimes it's good to have fresh ideas, have fresh eyes. And I would like to see if there's others out there that can provide this service that may have different ways of doing things. I wonder if Jennifer might, because she knows our community, because she knows what we've been doing, et cetera, she'll just follow the path that we've been on, as opposed to having someone come in with fresh set of eyes, fresh ideas, look at things a little bit differently, give us different ideas. I 100% agree that we need to have a consultant, a development consultant. I think if you don't have that on your payroll, you need to have that as a city. You know, we're not experts in those areas, and we need help with that. You know, like we need help in other areas that we don't have professionals in. But I just want to make sure that we're not just going along with the flow and getting other ideas and looking at different people and seeing what we can do.
And let me respond to that. This point well taken. It should, as you probably know, or maybe you don't, that while Jennifer was with Insight, when they had to change in ownership, she left Insight, and so she's been away a couple years. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years. The reason I didn't go out for proposals on this was because I really liked this team. I like the fit. If you look at the project team, you'll see that her role is relatively limited, okay, in terms of, and it's kind of similar to what we were getting before in engagement. That's how she's listed here. Presentation and outreach to developers and outreach to property owners, etc. The meat of it is Envision, the Envision team. And if you look at the credentials, project manager, and that's who I met with, Ryan Smalley and Emil Lesniansky. And Ryan has 18 years experience. He's got a master's in urban planning, design, and development, BS in civil engineering. And so he's the project manager in connectivity planning. And then Emil, 18 years experience, master's in urban planning, design and development, BS in civil engineering, happens to be an attorney as well. And his area of his role is land use planning and implementation. So these guys, that's their specialty area. Jennifer comes along for the ride. A nice piece for us because she knows the lay of the land. But it's so it really, really is a fresh look. It's a new team with an elevated level of expertise. And so I knew they existed, and we had talked to them before. We interviewed them on the 619 project. We liked them a lot. Kept them in the back of my mind. And as we moved along, I mean, we could go out to, the standard bearers. GPD does a lot of this stuff. OHM does a lot of this stuff. We're doing a lot with OHM, an awful lot. We're doing an awful lot with GPD. I'm not trying to share the wealth. I just thought that these folks had particular areas of expertise that really dovetail, I think, perfectly with what we need.
Okay. I still think we should look at other organizations and not just OHM or GDP, but again, somebody that hasn't dealt with the city before. And you mentioned that the other people with Envision, but still Jennifer's going to be leading the charge as such and kind of directing them on how this is what New Franklin wants. This is what New Franklin's looking for. At least that's the way I would see it happening. And I just think it would benefit the city to have fresh eyes and fresh ideas.
And to kind of touch on it as well, I mean, I don't agree that these guys look like they're very accomplished, but I see a lot of connectivity projects in there. I don't see a lot of economic development type planning for a city in that. So if you look at them, they've got, there's connection for Lakemore, there's a bicycle path, there's another connectivity plan, more connectivity. So that's basically,
This was the proposal, as you see on the front, for the 619 corridor development. So that's why you see the emphasis where you see it, okay? Because they were asked to respond to specific needs relative to State Route 619. There'd be a delay if I put this out for request for qualifications and 60 days at least. Which I would not want to see us lose those 60 days. This stuff isn't, these are administrative decisions that I bring to you. It was up to the administration to look at this and consider all of this and see who's out there and have some idea who does this kind of work. And many times I've said, let's go get a request for qualifications, and other times I've said, these we don't need to because we got the right people. And so that's why I bring this to you, at this way. We have the right people, in my opinion, for this. If you're not going to approve it, and I have to go out for a request for qualifications, I certainly will. I don't know what, eventually we're going to have the same decision to make. I'm open to, surprise, maybe somebody else will show up. I looked at, I had conversations with people that are, in the industry about what you might end up paying for consultants to do the work that they're proposing to do on State Route 619. And with that timeline and with those deliverables, what would we expect to pay somebody if we just said, we want you just to do just that? All right? And what I heard was $25,000 to $50,000 is what we would see. This is $24,000. This is 6 months at Ford. This is 6 months, the 619 piece. I mean, the State Route 93 piece is 6 months at $4,000. So what I'm saying to you is, that's the piece that needs done. Now, if they're doing good work, great. Then we look over at 619. If they're not, then we don't have to. But when I looked at just the 93 piece, okay, what would it cost to get this done for State Route 93? This is what I heard: $25,000 to $50,000. 25 well in. With that in mind, I had some of those conversations, and this is so. I would ask you to look at it that way, because that's the way I looked at it. That, as I said, we'll know at the end of 6 months how this is going. I think they're going to give us a really nice product. I think it's going to be a really valuable piece for us to accelerate this process and keep it moving. And our risk here is $24,000 for that piece.
I think development on this corridor is imperative for the city. I don't believe the city has the resources to communicate that with the residents. I mean, I know constantly we have Katie updating the website. We have Jim do a great job updating our community pages. All of our stuff goes in the paper every month. Everybody in this room is out talking to people, and I hear almost more than anything, I have no idea what's going on in the city. I don't think a letter, sending it out to some people and leaving that up, this important thing up to a letter, going out and being hands off is going to be enough. So I'm okay with this.
Osmond, you go.
You sure?
You're right next to him. Go down the
All
line.
right, so we're going down the line. I probably, without being repetitive, I'm more with Jim, which would be, we need something like this, but I also like the fresh set of eyes thing, and if we could table it, I would like to ask for more time on this for the next week. I understand you're doing it in two halves, but I would like to have that opportunity. Maybe they're good, they're down the road on Manchester, but Maybe when 619 comes, we'll do something better, maybe not. And I love the 30 days that they're giving us. But I love the idea of having a fresh set of eyes. But I'm all for having a consultant. Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, the scope of this consultant's work is vital for the city. I mean, we can't do this on our own in that type of regard. I do like that they'll work on 93 first, which I think is way more imperative than 619. I think when it's future looking, I think it's pretty proactive in the thing. The only thing I have is, which they might have put this in already, is like, what assurances do we have that, you know, their strategies are in line with what the community's wants, needs, and values are? Other than that, I think it's pretty solid. I just don't know, like, I'll give a satirical remark. It's like, oh, are they going to put a casino plan in? I don't believe so, but I don't know. I didn't see anything that, you know, gave any assurances about what the consultant's recommendations fall into value. I don't know if they're going to incorporate the comprehensive plan in their work or anything like that. I was wondering if you have an answer to that, if they would.
We talked about that, and yeah, they would, absolutely.
So like in my mind is like, whoever's really looking at it, I really care more about if they're going to follow that. Any consultant should follow that more than what their values are, because that's what the city's values are.
Understood.
So, I guess just to recap, I'm hearing that we want more time. We'd like to get another bid from a couple people. Why don't they bring us a contract that says 6 months on the Manchester Road, and if we want to continue with them, we can give them 30 days to continue. Otherwise, it drops off a bit. Instead of us having to come back and doing something and say, I don't want to continue.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that to try to pin this down in terms of what council would like to see. The benefit of, because as I sit here, what do I want to put out there? Do I want to put out a request for proposals for State Route 93, similar to what's suggested here? Or do I want to put out a proposal for State Route 93, or to be our development team? To be our development team, including State Route 93, but also available for other purposes when it comes to development. I mean, we're not at a standstill here. That's not the only thing that's happening. We've had, a development team assist us in a variety of different areas. So we need that level of expertise from a consulting standpoint, which was the benefit of actually bringing them in as the planning team and the focus on 619. So, because I don't know how quick things are going to percolate on 619, there may be a need for some discussion there. There may be a need for some expertise for us to reach out to. So we need to continue to, we don't have a planning and development office like other cities have because of our size and our economic limitations. So we need to have that piece, not just for 93. So the only thing I guess what I would do if you're not comfortable with this team, that I'll put out a request for proposals for a development team to assist us in development in New Franklin. And I'll ask them to focus on, as the initial project, or a primary project, not the initial project, the primary project would be the development of State Route 93, and see what their thoughts are. And we see what we get. Does that make sense to everyone? Is that what you're looking for?
Mr. Mayor, I think, because the way it was broken down on a proposal from Envision, it sort of pigeonholed us into two projects, just two projects. And I agree with you. I think we need a development team, or however you want to phrase it, that's looking at the entire city with focus on 93 and 619, because those are the areas that are coming up. But like you said, it needs to be a citywide thing, and it can't just limit us to 6 months on here, 6 months on here, whatever. We need to be able to do the whole thing. And I don't want it to sound like that Envision is not the right group. They may end up being that, but I just want to be able to see what else is out there, what other ideas are out there, because right now we don't know, and I'd like that to go out, so that other businesses can respond, not just the people we currently deal with. So again, getting those fresh eyes, those fresh ideas. And they may come in and say exactly the same thing we've been saying all along, but at least we have some confirmation then that we are headed down the right path. That's my thought.
Just to kind of echo what Jim said, I mean, what the proposal they gave us is very siloed into tasks. And anything outside of those will be additional charges. I don't want to see us, if you look at it, they've got, I'm just, the way I see it,
I see,
they got months, each month one has certain tasks, month two, certain tasks. It doesn't give them a broader scope to address other things.
I think a full reading of it would suggest that it envisioned all of that. When they get into additional charges, is if there was some specific task that hadn't been envisioned in the general nature of development. And you know that, you see that in virtually all these contracts, that if somehow we get outside the four corners, they want to reserve the right to charge additional fees depending on, what that would might be. But we'll see that, I'm sure, in every proposal.
We can pull the plug in 30 days at any time we don't like what we're going on, so I mean, I don't see a real downside. We don't like our deliverables.
Sure.
Pull out.
I don't know, I guess their month to month isn't, that's just here's like what we could do. I don't know if it's that like solid, I'm guessing there's not sold in stone. That's just like, oh, here's like something we could do in these months. Or is that like their game plan or not follow that?
Well, that's their game plan.
Okay, I didn't know.
I asked them to do that, and I'll ask, because again, that's preeminent right now. That needs to happen soon, so, when I put this together, I'm gonna ask the responding vendors to tell us, what do you intend to do, and what's your timeline for doing it. And it was somewhat one of the problems we had, I think we found in some of the previous agreements was, exactly what are the deliverables, what do we want, when are these things going to happen? So I'd incorporate that into requests for proposals.
Can you have this freedom not to exceed price? Because I know one of the things you ended up with town planning was we had a deliverable, we had a timeline. He exceeded that, and we ended up having to pay additional funds because he went a month or two beyond that. Because things happen throughout the course of the year.
Which contract was that?
That was the last one. We had to vote on an extension of his terms, and then we rolled into.
For Fred.
For Fred.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to see that same thing happen here either, where they give us a timeline, and due to circumstances that happen throughout the course of the year, gaps between public hearings and more work going into it, that stretches out, and then we were beyond our 12 months that was originally approved, then we were approving additional months.
Well, again, what we need is a development team. The somewhat arbitrary 6-month timeline for 93 was at my request to make sure that we were in a position when we need to be in the position, when the work needs to be done within that time frame. Yes, things may happen. It may not, it may be 7 months, it may be 7.5 months, it may be 8 months. That's not extending the term. We're retaining them on a month-to-month basis to be our development team.
Right.
So we don't have that same scenario that we had with Mr. Guerra. It would continue to be their fee. We've talked about 93, we've talked about 619. Sooner or later, things are going to happen on that Cleveland Mass line. We need to be, the city needs to be prepared proactively. And I believe the agreement states that, but the discussions I've had, and I would have with anybody else who wanted to make a proposal, is it's not tunnel vision 93 only. It's development issues in the city of New Franklin. Primary focus here. Available as other things come up. Somebody gets a hold of us and says, we got 50 acres out on Cleveland Massillon Road, and we want to put a housing development in, and we got to get sewer and water in there. Fine. We need people to talk to us about that. When we talk about different financing areas, these folks are well versed in TIFs and CRAs. They understand these things, so they bring that level of expertise so that we can have those kind of discussions. So that's, if we had a planning department sitting here, that's what they'd be doing. So we don't. The good news is we don't have to pay these people benefits. Okay, they're independent contractors. We don't have to pay overhead for the office. We outsource it. So whether it's them or whether it's somebody else, it's just that now's the time. That's all.
Any other comments?
The one thing I did like about this in Exhibit A is that, you know, like a city, we're like a business, we're trying to market ourselves for the correct businesses to come that we have talked about with citizens and everything. And the comprehensive plan, I love saying it, I guess, today, but, when it comes to like, you know, before the sewer even comes in, I mean, this company, from what they say, something about their investment perspectives, is that they'll do the marketing for us as well, and they'll, it sounds like they'll reach out and be like, the citizens of New Franklin want this will be coming, and they have done this before, so they know what they're looking for. Like, well, they want a little grocer. Well, we know little grocers will probably fit the future of this city. They can do that proactively as well, and that's like one of the biggest things is that people want stuff, they want the right things, more importantly. This company can help track down how to get to that. And I am not a city planner, so I don't know how to get to that. I know kind of how to get to that, but, you know, like, this is something I think would be pretty vital in, you know, helping the city get to where it wants to be. You know, not trying to tell her, you know, we kind of have stuff now. Now we're like backtracking to like, you know, maybe some land was sold or whatever was done beforehand and now it's irreversible. And now we can't get that one little thing we wanted because of something we didn't do proactively. So I do like that marketing aspect of it a lot.
All right, so what are we going to do? Are we?
Just real fast for time until next,
I'd like to see, I think 6 or 7 hundred talk. I think it's a great idea to have, gotta have it. So it's not the issue. For me, it's, you know, why is it an emergency? Why did it come to us today? We gotta approve it today. And why didn't, you know, when we buy a fire truck or whatever, we get 3 or 4 quotes or something. And I don't have the history with 6 is the last name.
Yeah.
But I don't know, but I think I would feel more comfortable if we could. I know it's putting us behind the eight ball a bit, but we want to do it in what Jim said. Man, probably, most likely we'll end up there, but I think it's good for us to at least see, because we might get somebody that's double the amount of money for half the ideas. So I would just like to ask for one time.
All right, so we'll close the, we're going to ask for time on resolution 25-R-22. We will close the community development committee at 6:52.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to call to order the New Franklin City Council meeting for March 19th, 2025. Please join me in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you call roll, please?
Mr. Cox?
Present.
Mr. Schaefer?
Present.
Mrs. Jones? Present. Mr. Powell?
Present.
Mr. Stiles?
Present.
Mr. Wolf?
Present.
Mr. Almond?
Present. Do I have a motion for the approval of the regularly scheduled minutes for the meeting of March 5th, 2025? I have a first, I have a second.
Second.
I have a first and a second, Carol?
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones? Yes. You were abstaining.
Oh, I'm
She's had it.
overstaying, that was in here, I apologize.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
I need a motion for the approval of the financials for February 2025, subject to audit. First, I have a second.
Second.
I have a first and a second, Carol?
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
All right. Next is public comment. If you have anything you'd like to say to council, please state your name, address, and you have 4 minutes to address us. Anybody?
Sharon Goodman, 6789 Hampshire Road. I actually have a lot of questions about this whole consultant group, but I'll try to just keep it to a couple of key questions. Exhibit 1, Task 1, Manchester Road Development. It talks about identifying large parcels for redevelopment. Do we have very clear boundaries that we are only looking at on Manchester Road? Because it seems like a lot of this stuff is evolving and kind of like changing. And I just want to remind everybody that comprehensive survey, a lot of people out here indicated they didn't want a lot of development. They wanted to stay a small bedroom community with only necessary and well thought out development. See us getting away from that. So that is a question that I have. Is there a specific? I don't know if anybody can answer that right now. Also in Lakes District Plan, we know what Water Nines is pretty much, but what is Lakes District Plan? Is there concrete boundaries for that? I'm sorry, I think I had another one, but I don't remember what it was.
I think we also think,
Jack Miller, 1279 Vanderhoof Road. I just found out about the sewer. It looks like I'm getting affected a lot because of how we price that out. Even over 8 years, that'd be an incredible amount of money. So,
There won't be any mandatory tie-ins on Vanderhoof, because you can't tie in. You won't be, it's a force main, you can't tie into it.
so they'll
And
never
there's
be
no
able to
assessment either.
ever.
I don't know about ever, whether they'll lay a new sewer line somewhere in the future, that would be a shock.
you know,
Okay.
so exactly,
Given the
the original area
expense.
has a gravity line going past your guys' area.
On the south
Which
side.
would allow you to tie into the
Yeah.
lift stations along the way that re-elevate that and so you can get the gravity flow. That scope is gonna change to where the Zeller button turn into a pump station. That'll be a force main, a pressurized line all the way down to the Barton, they go to the Vanderhoof plant. where the
Yeah,
pump
Van
station-
Buren.
The
No,
Van
there's not
plant.
gonna be a,
So they've got a lift station there now, they're not gonna upgrade that.
No.
It's gonna pump straight to Van Buren.
Yes.
Okay, so it's just gonna be a pressurized line to Van Buren,
So there'll never be a forced tie-in, you can have a phase 2 for Vanderbilt,
not Van Buren.
ever.
It's very short, you can't tie into that.
Yeah, you wouldn't be allowed to.
I don't want to, I'm like 700 or 800 feet off the road. Based off of your projection for an average person,
Actually, you'd be exempt because I think 300 foot is the limit for a force time.
perfect. Other one, the walking path. Just want to make my comment known, I'm 100% against it. It's easy to make a comment on Facebook, but I wanted to come here and make sure it's known that I didn't buy my property for that reason, and couldn't disagree more with it.
thanks.
Brian Young, 1243 Vanderhoof. I was going to talk about the sewer as well, which you beat me to it, but I think ultimately, I came here today to say we are 100% opposed to any type of walking or biking trail. We've had that conversation sitting on my porch.
Yes.
And I've talked to Kevin, I've talked to Jim, at various times throughout the time we've lived here in Franklin. I believe the comment was made that there was only like 4 people against it on Vanderhoof. I drove past 17 houses that I've spoken to who are all vehemently opposed to it. Nobody wants it on Vanderhoof. Nobody wants to tie into our property. No one wants people walking past our property from the Portage Lakes to the trail 24/7. Not to mention the fact when summer comes around, you get increased activity, increased crime. You know, I'm ready to do a FOIA request from the PD to find out what their incident reports are at the parks during the summer months. Because the police officers have told me to do that based on those type of things that are going to be happening past my home. And I don't want people walking past my house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 12 months out of the year. Not to mention the fact that you're telling us that you're not going to tell people what to do, but you speak out of your mouth, the other side of your mouth, and say, well, we want to put a walking trail in. You know, your mandate as mayor is to listen to your constituents, not the Ohio Erie Canal trail system. I don't care what they want. Your people that live in this community don't want a walking trail coming through our front yards, or our backyards, or wherever else. We bought our properties specifically to get away from the city and to get away from sidewalks and all that stuff. If we wanted to have sidewalks and people walking past it, we'd go buy it. We don't want that. That's how we moved here.
Yeah, a couple points. I mean, there's pretty good data relative to crime on these types of trails, and it is so unusual that generally when it happens, it's reported. Those are the more secluded types of trails, whereas this is a trail that would be open air, visible on Vanderhoof. I'm not insensitive to that, but I'm just saying from a crime standpoint, it's not necessarily something that we would expect to be an issue. Here's the thing. I didn't come here 8 years ago saying, I want to put a walking trail on Vanderbilt, okay? But as I look at these things, and I understand the economy of the city, and I'm a broken record in the sense that I'm trying to tell you that no surprise, costs go up. Meanwhile, we haven't had any commercial or residential development here in over 20 years, and our primary sources of revenue are property tax and income tax. And so we flatline on revenue. If we don't have some development, the city is going to have a very difficult time keeping the same level of services. So we scratch our heads and say, well, where can we have development and what's going to bring it? And we only have a couple corridors where we can even get sewer and water, where developers might be interested in coming, and some residential development as well. And this happens to be one of them, 619 as well. So then the next question becomes, let's assume we get, and the whole idea from a comprehensive plan has always been from 2004 and again in 2022. Is in these areas that maybe have some light commercial service kind of things, a restaurant, a coffee shop, a grocery store, a big drug mart or something like that, and maybe some residential behind, some attached single family, those kind of things. And so the question, then the next question becomes, why does anyone want to live here? All right, what is going to attract a developer to say, I'm going to put in 50 of these houses? What do we have to offer? You know, when you talk to people, when I talk to people that talk about downsizing or whatever, they say, well, we're going to look in Green, we're going to look in Jackson, we're going to look in here. I don't hear people saying, I can't wait to move to New Franklin. Okay? I'm not looking to change the character of the place. I'm looking to increase the revenue stream so that when you dial 911, the ambulance comes. So what would be attractive to a developer? What do we have to offer? We got the Portage Lakes. We got a 411-acre park. We've got the Ohio and Erie Canalway, 110 miles, that a lot of people enjoy, not just here. And then we see connector trails all over the county that spur some residential development. So I'm looking at these two assets, and then lo and behold, the Ohio and Erie Canal says, man, you got two great assets here, we like to connect these things. Wouldn't that be a nice hook? All right? So I think that it would be a nice hook. I think it's one more thing to sell. I'm not happy about the fact that it would impose on the people on Vanderbilt. The plan that's been done is entirely in the road right away. Yes, it's going to shorten it. It's a separated path. I got no crystal ball either, and I get it. Would I want it in my front yard? I don't know how I'd feel. I'd love to say, well, this is something good for the city. Let me take one for the team, and we're going to keep an eye on this thing. I get it, and I might say, I do not want that in my front yard. All right? And I appreciate that. Okay? But again, it's almost like the 50 houses up here, that what is it going to take to generate the revenue to make sure that the really important stuff happens? The police and the fire and the EMS and the paving and the plowing. Okay, what is it going to take to make that happen? Where's that revenue going to come from? So, do we have to have this? And I will tell you, I'm done talking about that path. I'm going to leave that to the future. Okay, if in the future another administration or a different council starts to say, or developers say to us, boy, it'd be nice if there was a path there, because I'd like to see, and hey, no secret, I'd like to see a multi-use path on 93. All right, so that people can get from here to the state park, which they will do. Okay? So this isn't a unique trend in New Franklin. This is what when you go to the conferences, when they talk about planning, this is what attracts people. This is how you do it. So that's really where I'm at with it. And you both the gentlemen, when I've talked to you before, I'm not trying to take your property. I think it's something that's good for the city. But I'm not, that's off the table at this point in time. But from my perspective, if council wants to run with it or future administration, the initial plans are done. We had a $15,000 grant. They'll carry that into, you can revisit that again in 2026. I've talked to Dan Rice. I told him there's some concern. And so I'm not going to present any, and that's why I brought it up rather than coming with a resolution. And I talked about it as opposed to putting a resolution in front of council. And I got the pushback and I said, well, we got other fish to fry. There's other things I'd like to see the city do. I'm not gonna get into a big fight about the trail, so I respect the fact that you come and talk about it. I hope that clarifies a little bit where my mind is on this thing.
Can I say something else too? I think part of it too is that I'm young. I moved here, I was 45. You know, I moved here because I'm a fully capable human. Most people are not moving to New Franklin where the average parcel size is 1 to 3 acres because they're incapable. They know exactly what they're getting. And I think to use fear of not getting EMS or police as a method of selling is not the best approach. I'm fully armed in my house. I'm going to respond much faster than the police will. I don't need a sewer. I put a $20,000 septic in. I have a well. I have a generator. If anything, I want less city input. I want to know what you're doing to get out of our lives. I want to know what you guys are doing to cut costs. Yeah, things are going to go up, but what are we doing administratively? What are we doing as a city to spend less money so we're not so concentrated on putting 50 house developments in on Cleveland Maston or the Water 9 or down 93? I mean, those are things that as homeowners, we want to see the council and the mayor's office are doing to decrease our costs despite the elevation of building and maintenance and things like that. What are you guys doing administratively to limit those expenses rather than just looking for ways to increase revenue?
And I can't prove these things to you, but I can tell you that there's been a hard eye on finances, and we're blessed with really good department heads and leadership from our finance department. This city is run on a frugal basis, and I'm happy to share all the data with anybody and talk to every one of our department heads, and you could look around here, and there's been no frivolous purchases. There's been no, there's no waste going on here, but that's just me saying that. You may think there is, and there's ways we could cut. If there were ways we would cut, they've already been cut, okay? And the second point you make, and I'm glad you say that, because I am repulsed by politicians who use fear as a tool. I think that's one of the reasons we're in the situation that we're in, nationally. But locally, I don't say these things to sell fear that people are going to want development. I'm just trying to be real and make people understand that, that part of it, because I didn't think about it until I got here. I just expect my road to be plowed and paved, and I hadn't thought about what the revenue is versus what the expenses are. So I think people need to kind of grasp that. I want to get that out there so that people understand that, I get it, hold us to a task and make sure that we're operating, efficiently and economically. But if that's the case, then understand that it's going to take more money to keep doing what we do. But I respect what you're saying there too. No, I'm not trying to sell any fear here. I'm trying to tell the truth and get the word out to people.
Eric Goodwin, 6789 Hampshire. I had a question about this proposed trail, and I read in the Westside Leader, you have answered most of my questions. But it says they're nearing the second section. Has there been a first section completed?
No, there's been no section completed. There's been some design done as to where it would go.
Okay, so this is incorrect. So, am I to understand this is to connect the towpath, the state park,
Yes.
and your purpose is for economic development?
Yeah. I mean, from the recreational aspect of it, I think there's people locally that would use that. I would use it, when I bike, I go Center Road. I don't go Vanderhoof because Vanderhoof's too dangerous. Now, if there was a separated path, I would go on Vanderhoof, but instead I go on Center Road, which by itself is not ideal, but it doesn't have the traffic that Vanderhoof does, so it's a little bit safer. And I'm not the only one. Okay, I'm out there, I see other bikers the same way. So I think there's a recreational aspect. It's not just to attract more people here. It's a recreational feature for the people that already live here and already use both these, both the parks.
Well, most of the people who walk on the towpath trail do that to get away from the busy roads in the city because they want the nature, they want to look at the turtles and the muskrats in the canal and whatnot. if they want to walk on roads, they go into a residential allotment. Same thing with State Park, you have hiking trails in there and very few bikes. Bikes that are used on a towpath are used there because it's very, very slight incline and it's off the beaten path and not getting run over by cars. So I don't see that working at all, and I don't see it attracting people. If they want to go up and down those hills on a bike, they can go to Camp Tuscador and do mountain biking. So I'm just, and if there's any other purpose for economic development, I'd like to know, but I don't see how it's gonna bring any money into the city. It's gonna cost a fortune.
Anybody else with public comment?
Yeah, Mike Hoffman at 4123 Melcher Avenue. I have some visual aids. So. I made a rookie mistake on one of my graphics there that I was showing. This is about short-term rentals. So what I'm passing out is I'll talk about some of the photos. And I have the letter from Silver Lake Mayor's Office on the Senate Bill 104 that's about trying to regulate short-term rentals and trying to prevent cities from regulating. But I'll try to keep this, it might be 6 or 7 minutes instead of 4 minutes, but okay. So we live on the south shore of the West Reservoir, geographically, if you're on the boat, it's somewhere between Upper Deck and the Iron Channel. We moved here in 2015 from Solon, where after our kids graduated, kind of our empty nest life, hopefully forever, unless we're driven out by Airbnbs. But so I work from home. I'm a sales director for a national CPA firm. My second floor overlooks the lake. But we're concerned about the growth of short-term rentals. We have 6 short-term rentals within 6 blocks of us. So that second graphic on the bottom has purple push pins. Those represent where I found on Airbnb and VRBO just in our area, which is Mr. Copp's ward. And we had a new purchase 2 doors down from us that was in December. It's a 2-bedroom house, less than 900 square feet. It's advertised now on VRBO as a 3-bedroom that sleeps 10. And we were friends with the prior owner, Denny Ball. Some of you may know, he's a long-time Laker, died in 2022. So that graphic on the top, my conversion from Microsoft Word to Adobe messed up. So that yellow arrow should be 2 properties to the right, where I highlighted in green. Oh, sorry,
No,
1 to the right. And the red arrow should be also 1 to the right. So I highlighted in green the 2 different parcels. So our parcel is on the right, our house.
Which number, which parcel number?
Ends in 1321
Okay.
is our house. And the one in question is the new Airbnb, ends in 046.
Okay.
Funky pie-shaped lot.
Right. So we moved here. We've kind of embraced the density of the area. We've liked the fact that we can speak to people without yelling. 5 houses to the right and 5 houses to the left, and they're not exaggerating down there. And we don't want a short-term rental. It's a non-owner occupied. They bought it as an investment. That's there. So it's only used for short-term rentals. And we just bought it in December. And we don't want 40 to 50 strangers a year living in our collective front yards. So there's some other pictures of the property that you'll see. They only have 5 feet of lake frontage on this particular property, maybe, the way that the angles are. So they can't even sit 2 chairs next to each other. That's a side point on the space limitation. But New Franklin, as I understand it, has no restrictions. And it's really, by doing that, giving preference to investors over year-round homeowners like us. So we also have an aging neighborhood. Several people are in their 70s. And I'm concerned if we don't do some regulation that I'm going to have multiple other STRs popping up on both sides of us, that whole street, which some people have called Little Wadsworth. Ironically, I graduated from Wadsworth. Just happened to buy this house and now I'm in Little Wadsworth. But so anyway, we don't want investors having more vacationers invading our quiet residential space. So I know New Franklin wisely restricts businesses from residential zoned area for quality of life. You can't have a retail establishment. I know the code even restricts bed and breakfasts. You have to get conditional permit. I would rather have a bed and breakfast 2 houses away because I know the owner lives there and is going to be supervising the guests at the house. So we're regulating bed and breakfast in our lakefront, but we're not regulating the short-term rentals. If you, Boston Heights, this Senate Bill 104, last year there was a House bill and it didn't make it to the floor. Now Senate Bill 104 is trying to restrict cities from regulating short-term rentals with a big lobby. So if you go on the website, you'll see that there's 40 letters from Airbnb owners, but there's also 65 letters from cities trying to oppose this bill so that they can control, the regulation of these short-term rentals. The village of Roaming Shores has restricted, they flat out have restricted any short-term rentals in their area. I know Coventry Township has done some restrictions on short-term rentals, and New Franklin hasn't done anything. So I'm concerned about the impact on the community. There's a lot of talk about wanting to get people to move here and live here. We're going to drive them out with short-term rentals and just have people that live in other communities buy investment property, and it's going to be party central on the lake. So we came in front of the Board of Zoning in 2022 for a project to renovate, to beautify our house and do a major renovation, and had to do it got rejected 2 times, had to do 3 revisions because that zoning board, I know it's turned over, the variance board, said that they were concerned about the quality of the life and impacting the neighborhood, with the property. And we were going to enhance it, had no objections from any of the neighbors, and that zoning board was so concerned about the community that they made us go through 3 modifications, but yet somebody can buy a house 2 doors down and rent it out. So I'm not looking for a resolution tonight. I know it needs a study. I think Mayor Adamson communicated, or Mr. Cox, that it was evaluated and maybe it was paused because of this legislation the state's trying to do, but your other communities, your other peers are putting restrictions on these short-term rentals. And I don't think anybody that's in council, if you looked at some of the pictures of where our house is, would want somebody that's not an owner-occupied house that's renting it out full-time living that close. That house is less than 10 feet. There's a house less than 10 foot on each side of that, and mine's probably 30 feet, from this house. So they haven't rented, it's brand new, so we haven't had any renters yet. But we are going to be watching them like a hawk on how that, and we will be calling New Franklin Police if we've got issues. So it's going to put a burden on the police department too, the explosion of these short-term rentals, because we know that they're not going to care for the property like an owner would. So I saw some of the ones that are listed. There are some people that are doing VRBOs that are living in their house, and they might rent it out for a week occasionally. I don't really have an issue with that. I know the Norris's Airbnb above Dusty's and the property there, I don't have an issue with that either. Actually, we got friends that rent for like a month from Crancy back there. That's a different ballgame than these tightly dense communities. So I don't know, I don't have all the answers to it, but I'm interested in what council thinks about it. And I've got some the Silver Lake letter, you'll see what they did. They're opposing this. They don't want short-term rentals, and they have a much less density around their lake. We probably have 5 times the density that Silver Lake does, and they're saying that they don't want them in their community. So that's my thoughts. I'm open to discuss. I know that you guys did a 1-year moratorium on self-storage things in the community and on, I think, small discount stores and stuff like that. Does people have to apply for a permit to New Franklin to do a short-term rental? And if so, can we do a 1-year moratorium on that while you guys are studying the issue?
So, real quick, you mentioned Roaming Shores. What community is that in?
Northeast by Ashtabula.
It's Rome, Ohio. I think they call it, and then the lake is Roaming Shores.
But that example that I did of Silver Lake, you know, you could go on that website and you could see, here's Boston Township trustee. They said that they talk about having bed and breakfasts on there, and they say, we love bed and breakfast because the operator lives on premises. Short-term rentals are businesses that would be elimination of residential properties. So if you look at some of those other peer communities and what they're saying about it, I think it'll influence. I don't know what's positive about it. I don't know what's positive about it.
Well, Mr. Hoffman, I agree with you 100%. I think this is a concern. I've had this concern for a number of years and have worked on different committees trying to come up with solutions and regulations. It really is has been, in our experience in the past, very hard to come up with the right situation, the right wording. I agree. I think Airbnbs, short-term rentals within neighborhoods such as yours, such as mine, you don't have that neighborhood anymore because, like you mentioned, you have off-site owners and there's nobody there forming that community, that neighborhood community, and nobody necessarily taking pride in that neighborhood community, only make sure that their house is rentable. I don't see a lot of benefits for us having short-term rentals within New Franklin. I mean, there may be some areas, like you mentioned, over at Dusty's that it might work in. But for the most part, we look at what kind of regulations, what kind of permits, what kind of fees, what kind of taxes. I mean, we've looked at pretty much everything, right, Mr. Mayor, about how to make this happen, and we failed. We haven't been able to come up with it at this point, and we did push it off because of pending legislation in Ohio. But I'm still in favor of coming up with something.
So, Mr. Hart, I was on that same committee with Jim. We met with the attorneys and the mayor and stuff. We tried to come up with a solution, and that legislation was a kind of a roadblock at the time. Since I know of a community that they have some registration process for short-term rentals, and it's a permitting process. You go through the building department. They go through the planning and zoning committee. But basically, after so many strikes, you're prohibited from doing that. That's driven on complaints, police calls, and so on. And there's various stipulations. I could get that information and show that to you guys and see if that's something we want to look at and use it as a template.
I think that's a good idea.
I have family in a community up in Vermillion, and last year they kicked in a permitting process, which included a safety inspection that the city done of the house before they did that, and also they put a bed tax on that, so the city did generate some revenue. So I don't know what's maybe changed since our thing, but it does seem like other communities are starting to move forward with that.
Yeah, so if you know those, if you could grab, if you gather information, I'll grab some stuff. Anybody else that may have some information on that, maybe we get our committee back together and then look at what we can do.
Yeah, I'd be happy to get a study group and share knowledge. I mean, ours, and maybe it's a density issue because as you can see in our neighborhood, maybe it's, you gotta have a minimum setback between two houses to have a Airbnb. There's less than 10 feet setback between where this house is and the two on either side. So maybe if you're out on Vanderhoof and you've got 2 acres between an Airbnb, they're not even gonna hear them, that's there. So, but I mean, you could just say, let's treat it like a bed and breakfast. You know, your zoning codes already talks about bed and breakfast need a conditional permit. I don't know what the hurdles are for the conditional permit. Maybe it's talking to the neighbors, get the neighbors to bless it. They won't.
Not in our neighborhood.
Well, thanks for bringing that to us. Anybody else have any public comments?
Hey, if I could on that one, is council interested in expressing opposition to Senate Bill 104?
Yes.
All right. And then in terms of a timeline for these folks, is there an intention of council to reconvene your group to start working on this? Because time could be of the essence in terms of if you determine, if you come up with a good model, there's nothing to say it couldn't be adopted now in anticipation of this perspective. legislation, so, how do you want to proceed in that? How does council want to proceed in that regard?
I think we should get our committee back together, but I know I spoke out loud about opposition to the Senate. How's everybody else feel?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we would. Yeah, I just not prepared to put my name on it. I'm opposing it. I gotta read it.
75 pages. Right?
I'm on it.
Give it a beer at Dusty's.
Yeah.
It's 95 pages. Basically what it does is, it takes away the cities, it takes away the municipalities' authority to legislate short-term rentals.
We looked at this, and I think being fiscally responsible with our funds, we stayed away because we don't want to get litigated against. And then the city has to pay for it, right? We gotta be good stewards of the money. And it's like if we put a regulation on it, somebody with deep pockets says, I'm a property rights guy. This is my house. I can do what I want with my house within reason. If I want to rent it to somebody, so it's sort of a sticky wicket. I think that it's not that we all deserve to be able to live in our home and not have buckets and all that. That's 100%. But I think my understanding, and I wasn't part of it, that it was almost like we were, you put something there, somebody's going to oppose it, and we'll see you in court.
That was 3 years ago.
Right.
3 years ago, we had those discussions with the attorney and stuff, and there wasn't a whole lot of case out there where people had successfully put something like this in place.
I think it'd be prudent to talk to the other communities that have done it to find out that's a reasonable position. Is to say, did they assess it? And, talk to some of your peer communities, what due diligence they did before they put in a legislation.
That was good. Thank you for being prepared.
I think a lot of the components that you discussed you'll find them when you reopen those files from those years ago. For council to update that with more recent legislation. And as it relates to whether the council wants to take a position on Senate Bill 104, I'll wait for direction from council on that. It would seem to me it would be something that you could do by motion during the regular meeting. Whether you choose to do that now or next meeting or whatever, but that's what we would do. So
I'd like to make a motion.
Well, I think you should probably do it during the regular meeting.
We are in a regular meeting.
Oh, excuse me, I was having so much fun, I forgot.
But we'll wait till after public.
Oh, no, fire away. Fire away.
All right, I make a motion that we send a letter to the Senate and House of Representatives for the state of Ohio, voicing our opposition for Senate Bill 104, from the mayor and from city council and the residents, majority of the residents, some of the residents of the
Kelly?
I would,
I haven't even read the bill.
I would tell you that from what you're saying, I'm against the state telling us our local business here and what we can do with regulations, but I haven't read it. And
Go ahead.
I'd like to ask for time and, go down it next month and at least have a look at that before I sign my name to it.
Absolutely.
Something I never looked at.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with home rule. That's what the whole debate's about, the home rule issue on that, and I agree with that. I've heard about
Would
it.
you like to wait until the next meeting? when
Sure.
People can have a chance to review this?
Can we just, take time on it? Yeah, we'll withdraw the motion.
Thank you.
There's nothing happened with the regulation the next 30 days.
No, it's going to be a slog.
The committee was assigned to doesn't even have any hearings for it yet, assigned.
You're gonna need to wait till the regular meeting before you can withdraw your.
I apologize for my aggressiveness.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, we're going to close public comments. Now we're entering into our first readings, resolution 25R20 then.
A resolution approving a change order to Systems Excavating Services LLC for the 2024 Overture Way Culvert Replacement Project and authorizing a then and now purchase order for payment of same and declaring an emergency.
This resolution's been assigned to the Finance Committee. Lost my paper. Can I get a motion to waive the three?
So moved.
Second.
You have a first and a second?
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt this resolution.
Second.
You have a first and a second?
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Resolution passes 7-0. Resolution 25R21, Phil.
A resolution authorizing New Franklin to enter into an agreement with Sun Life for life, voluntary life, and voluntary vision insurance for New Franklin's health insurance plan and declaring an emergency.
This resolution has been assigned to the Finance Committee. I'd like to make a motion to waive the three.
Second.
You have a first and a second?
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
I'd also like to make a motion to adopt 25R21.
Second.
You have a first and a second?
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes. Resolution passes 7-0. Resolution 25R22.
A resolution authorizing New Franklin to enter into an agreement with Envision Group LLC to serve as planning consultant for New Franklin and declaring an emergency.
This resolution is brought before the Community Development Committee, and we're going to ask for time.
Time is requested and time is granted. We'll close out our readings. Next on our favorite part of the meeting, budget report.
Oh, boy. How long can it last? But yet another week, so I'll take it. Still a favorite part. I'm happy about that. Let's go. Planning and zoning, you may have heard this earlier tonight, is meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. And they're going to start the discussion relative to zoning districts and the matrix, et cetera. It's quite necessary, long overdue, and looking forward to that, to moving along with that piece for the city. I guess I should say it does not exclusively have to do with the D word, development. A lot of it has to do with cleaning up language, and the matrix has been messy, and people have asked for, they want to do a particular type of commercial enterprise, and it's not even listed in our current matrix, so there's good progress there. The April 2nd, as I mentioned, will be the public hearing on the land use subdivision regulations. They're lengthy. There's been some tweaking from what Summit County had in place, what we had adopted as ours. So, but planning and zoning unanimously approved them, and so that public hearing will take place at the beginning of the April 2nd meeting. Let's see, I already told you about State Road 93, sewer. There is a commercial aspect to that too. We have a conference on April 8th with the EPA relative to what their expectations might be for commercial properties. On 93, they get, that's a state mandate. We're not in a county situation in that regard. I mentioned previously also fiscal year 25 federal appropriations are not likely to happen. And our application was in the hopper. I don't know if we made the final cut. I do know that what I understand is none of them are going to be approved for fiscal year 25, which is going to impact a lot of cities. We already saw Clinton, it apparently had a $1 million road project. Marvin had a lot of projects that they had still that they wanted to get done, and so that's not going to happen. We will gear up and make the application this summer. I've been in touch with the Senator Marino's office, Senator Houston's office, and Representative Sykes' office, and let them know that we've been making the application for fiscal year 2026. I've heard back from Senator Houston's office and Representative Sykes that they understand our need and they're interested. So we'll keep trying to bring that federal money in here. Parks meeting is next Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. And they'll talk about all things parks, but specifically Sisler. We've got some of the cost estimates for rough cost estimates for the walking trail. So we'll have a discussion on that with Parks. That'll be next Tuesday at 6:30. Home rule is an ongoing issue. I mean, we're a charter city, and a lot of cities are charter cities, and charter cities would like to be able to make their own rules on things, such as short-term rentals. And there's sort of an ongoing tug-of-war between the folks in Columbus who will say, well, we're going to preempt your authority, your ability to do that. I got wind last Friday that there was a preemption bill, and actually it's a bill in the House and in the Senate, that would preempt municipalities from placing replacement tax levies on the ballot. As you know, our fire levy expires at the end of this year. The intention, at least the recommendation, was going to be to council to place a replacement levy on the ballot. When we've done that in the past, we've been very transparent. We send out mailers to everybody. We tell them here's what, because with the replacement as opposed to renewal, you get the advantage of the increased valuations, and it goes back up to the maximum rate that you can recover at that point in time. And so we've always notified people exactly what those numbers are. We took a look at some of the numbers. If we did a replacement this year, impact on residents would be the $100,000 house is about $8 a month, and the $200,000 house is about $15 a month. And then people would decide whether they want to vote for that or whether they don't. From the fire department standpoint, that levy brings in about $2 million right now. That was 5 years ago. We know with inflation, with the West Side Station, there's a need for additional funding. The replacement levy would bring in an additional $1 million. So it's something that the city really, I think, desperately needs. And I was down to Columbus, and it just so happened that I got a chance to testify in front of the Ways and Means Committee today about that issue and why it was important. And why the fact that we've always been transparent with that. I took with me the mailer that we sent out to everybody the last time around, and we're not trying to surprise anybody. And I also pointed out that in this day and age, you can't surprise anybody. It gets on Facebook and everybody knows, and that's good. And people who want to oppose it, they can oppose it, so you get to vote on merits. Well, long story short, it did report out of that committee favorably to recommend that cities lose that opportunity to do a replacement levy. There are some other options, and I understand, and I also talked to ranking senators in the Senate Ways and Means, and it looks like it's going to come out the same way there, and so I'll be surprised if it doesn't pass. The way it's presented, it would be effective in October, so we would not be able to put a replacement levy. Now there's another option that I'm looking at that I'll talk to council about, is a renewal with increase, and which is really the same thing. It says the same thing to folks, it's just phrased in different ways. So I just want to bring you up to speed on that for both reasons, that there's a real good chance that replacement will not be an option. And it's another example of, I think, what municipalities have to be cautious of is what I think could be considered overreaching by a state legislature as it relates to decisions that maybe are more, the cities ought to be able to make their own decisions on things like these. So that's what's up there. Electric aggregation, we don't have enough confusion in the world. Now the aggregation period is coming up. We are a member of the Summit County by ballot issue. The residents decided they wanted to to take advantage of aggregation and gas and electric. The gas has been through NOPEC. The county has selected NOPEC as the gas provider. I think it's been good savings all the way across the board. Nobody's forced to do it. You can always opt out. And I think theirs is coming up also as well, the opt-out period for NOPEC. We're going to be hearing from them probably in a month or so. Meanwhile, this is the opt-out period for electric. Summit County had traditionally used First Energy, which became Energy Harbor, and Summit County decided to go with a different vendor. Who are they? I can't remember.
Dynergy or something.
Synergy or something.
Yeah.
That starts with a D.
We got it today.
Yeah, they were today's mail also. All right. So, and that's apparently who they think is the best offer. Once again, so you're getting that stuff in the mail, and it's an opt-out deal. If you want to stay with them, you don't have to do anything. If you want to opt out, you can do that, and then you have to choose your own provider. I think that I looked at some of the specifics on that. What's it called? Dynenergy. You can get out of that. Yeah. Dynegy. Anyway, D-Y-N-E-G-Y. So even if you don't opt out now, you can opt out in the future. There's no penalty if you opt out in the future as well. So there's that. And the last thing I wanted to report on was what I have in my hands here is the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency grant agreement. And this is the water project that is off and running. And it's funded, New Franklin's part of that, from $970,000 grant we got for fiscal year 24. It has been a little frightening because of some orders that have come out of Washington that have frozen federal funding for a variety of projects. The question remained, were the funds that have already been tentatively approved, were they still going to be available? And the whole process with this federal money, and then the same thing is true with fiscal year 2023 money, the $3 million for the sewer project. Once it's awarded, once council appropriates those funds, which they've done as to both of these funds, you still have to go through an application process to satisfy the environmental component. The money's there, it's not going anywhere. You have to jump through the proper hoops, and then they free up the funds. And so we've been jumping through all those hoops with the help of Arcadis on the environmental piece, with OHM on the work plan piece, and yesterday we got the word that we're there. So there was twofold. We expected this to happen, but you never know until it's there. So this is a reimbursement grant. We can start. We've already incurred some expenses, and we're going to be able to be reimbursed for those expenses. And as we go along, we get the bills from the contractor. We'll be able to satisfy those. I say that with somewhat of a smile. Mrs. Cook may not be smiling quite as much. The application process is 26 pages or so. So there's a lot of work that comes along with the money. But that's good. So I'm really, really thrilled that those funds came together. We hope to be in a position with the sewer, when we're finishing up the environmental piece, that it would be finally submitted by the end of May, and that we get final approval within 90 days or so there. Again, the money's been appropriated. It's there, and the full expectation is that's going to happen. But this is a good sign. Hopefully, nothing crazy will happen between now and that money will be freed up as well. That is all I have.
Just a couple things. A reminder to everybody that we do have shredding day, April 26th from 9 to noon here. So we can bring up to 10 bags. They do check to make sure you're a resident, but if you'd like to have some of your documents shredded, and they're doing them here, in the trucks as it sits there, so it's not like you have to worry about your what paper that you put in there, because it's going to be immediately shredded. No Pet gives us $750 toward that event. It pays about half the cost, but that'll be, again, and it's back in the spring. We tried to lock them into that kind of April date, so we're back at April 26th. So keep that in mind. Another April deadline that's coming up, obviously, is taxes, and for us, income taxes. So I just want to remind people about that, as well as anyone that is having problems or getting statements from Rita where they have penalty and interest. Please call us and let us know. We can help you out with that if there is a problem. But if we don't know, we can't help you out. So please contact our office if you do experience any problems. We've been known to send things ourselves to make sure that they're recorded and there's no problems. I want to see everybody's tax returns. That's not what I mean. But we make sure that everybody that comes to us, that what they need gets handled. And we have a secure website for Rita that we go through to handle this information. So on that same vein of Rita, I wanted to give you just a little bit of information about that they told us about. It's kind of what's up with the Rita services. For example, registration. Rita added 583 new accounts in 2022, 472 new accounts in 23, and 650 new accounts in 24. The sources that were used to determine these registrations include, but are not limited to, new filings, utility records, permits, State of Ohio filings, and IRS filings. They also had a major increase in e-filing, people e-filing, which is a good way to do this. And most of there are a lot of companies that handle Rita now, and not TurboTax, of course, but other ones. And if you have a tax preparer, they usually are able to send this as well as your state and federal electronically. We've had a lot of people say, I went to my tax preparer and he sent my taxes. Why do I owe Rita? He sent my taxes. Well, a lot of them don't know if you have a Rita tax if you don't tell them. So you need to tell them so that they can get that handled, because just because your federal and state has been filed does not mean you've taken care of your income tax. So we have more people utilizing the e-filing services. In 2022, there were 4,214 electronic submissions, and with 39 new accounts. In 23, there were 4,520 submissions with 39 new accounts. And in 24, there were 4,418 submissions with 45 new accounts added. So that continues to be on the rise, which is a good thing. As far as collections, the collections for 2022 tax year were $3,886,630.02. That was an increase of 9.95% as compared to the 2021 results. Collections for 23 were $4,303,753.53, which was an increase of 10.73% over the 2022 results. And the collections for 2024 were $4,679.58, which was an increase of 2.32% compared to the 23 results. And I know council has seen the report, so they know that this has been gradually going up every year. But these are the statistics from Rita themselves that give us that information. So I wanted to make sure I gave you that information. That's the latest from Rita. Lastly is in our office, as you know, we have a new human resource coordinator, and she will be doing payroll. So she is starting training with VIP. We've been training her as she's been here, but she's starting the actual VIP, which is our software training through Software Solutions. starting next week. In fact, Chris is going to be training as well. And so they'll have a portion of most of the days of next week working on that subject. Once that's done, then I will teach them how to do each function the way that we do them. They'll get an overview of all of VIP, and then I'll go into the details with them after they've had that experience. So our new person, Stephanie, is very pleasant and doing a nice job, and we're hoping for great things. So that is all I have.
So on the increases that you reported, I know they changed the tax law a few years ago about if you're working from home, you're no longer paying those income taxes to the community that you may have worked in. Is there any way to attribute those increases to maybe people working remotely now or working from home?
I doubt if that's it. It doesn't say that in the report, but I would kind of doubt that it's that, because usually what happens in the past is that when they have a department that basically checks people's federal returns and their state returns against where they live and if they should be paying tax to the city. And so as they continue to do that, we tend to get more people that we find that are in the city. They also asked us, they're going to send me, they have a map, for example, of all the addresses in the city, within the city limits. So they have that, and that's what they go by, but they asked, they're going to send me the old one, and we're going to take a look at it with zoning and make sure all the addresses are updated so that we're not missing anything on that end too. So those kind of things are the things that really are the driving force for increases.
Susan, I have a question.
Yeah.
You said that anybody that needs help with their RETA, that you will help. There are certain things that you don't do for businesses that are New Franklin, just for residents.
No, I do have to, I don't do anybody's taxes, first of all, we don't do that. We don't do your taxes.
Okay, that wasn't what I said.
Yeah, but if they are a business and they have a problem, like for example, they're withholding, we've had this happen, where they reach the threshold and now they have to report monthly rather than quarterly. And they get a penalty for that. We have helped businesses out with that and reduced it, gotten rid of the penalty and interest as a one-time deal for them to get, squared away. So we have helped businesses as well as individuals.
Okay, and it would only be a one-time deal for a business? You would never do it twice or three times, it's just a one-time deal?
Normally we just do it one time unless sometimes we have things that are like a combination of problems where they've got their statement and it's just one, but immediately right after it's another one and they didn't have that information. So we try to get them all squared away.
I think what we're doing with, if a business in that illustration came to you with that problem, with whether they need to withhold whatever, and the penalty and interest, we see to it that the penalty and interest is waived, and that's explained. If they come a year later with the same situation, they're probably not going to get the penalty and interest rate. If they come the next year with a different situation, we'll address that situation as well. So if they had penalty for a entirely different reason that had never been addressed, it would be as if they were there for the first time. So they're not limited to just one stop.
Right. I understand. I didn't understand before though. I wanted to make sure that you do help businesses as well as residential.
Oh, yes, on a regular basis, yes. If they come to us, we will certainly help them out as much as we can.
All right, any old business?
I have a business. It is the farmer's market. We're starting this year a little bit early, the second week in June. We're going to be, and we'll be right outside here. It'll be Terry, Judy Williams, and myself.
Anybody else with any old business? The Clinton talks, have you heard anything more on those?
No, I have not. We need to regroup. As you know, one of the department heads we wanted to meet with was unavailable due to some family situations. So we'll get that rescheduled for the three of us to meet.
Okay. Thank you. Any new business? Anybody?
You mentioned that the parks meeting is going to be the 25th.
Yes, Tuesday night.
One thing I wanted to touch on, you mentioned about the electric rates, and how electric is basically your electric bill, since we're on First Energy out here. There's various components to that, and the rate that you can select is just one minor component of that, and that's gonna be for the energy. There's other components that you have no control over, that's gonna be for your capacity, transmission, distribution, stuff like that. Those rates are going up substantially in June of this year, so a typical person can see $25 to $30 increase on their monthly bill. So just an FYI on that, people may want to start thinking about LED lights, if they don't have, just some ways to start saving on some money, just to kind of mitigate those costs.
There was some pushback on that. I know that was what was proposed.
So that's based
But
off of, oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, I think there's been some pushback and some revisiting on that, but I could be wrong.
So basically, the capacity and transmission charges are based off what we call coincidental peaks. So there's one coincidental peak out of the year that they basically correlate to transmission costs, and the 5 peaks out of that year go towards capacity charges. And that's for the PJM, which we were part of. And those charges, basically, they do an auction for energy, transmission, and capacity. And that is basically, like, the capacity is to have a power plant ready to push out all the power at any given time. And that's also the transmission side of that, is to make sure that the lines are available. So those are, unless something I'm not aware of, but as of just the other day, they're still active.
Did the PUCO have to approve that increase?
And so I don't deal with PUCO.
No, the PUCO,
Right.
Public Utilities.
I know, so.
Okay. Because that's what I'm referencing, that I know that there was a pretty substantial rate increase that was suggested and maybe it was initially, I don't know, passed, but I just read recently that, so it may be a different charge. I don't know, but the energy bills are.
I'll look into the report back, but I know on municipal side of things, it's a done deal, it's happening, and from everything we've heard, and actually that was just the other day, it's still across the board. I just wanted to bring that up. Any other new business? Seeing none? Any other public comments for anything you guys have heard this evening?
What's the zoning meeting tomorrow night? You said a discussion about zoning matrix. What's the objective of that meeting?
It's a review of our current zoning districts and to see whether or not it would make sense to revise those. And then the districts themselves. So we have a traditional
R3
B1 and R2. Well, no, not necessarily the dimensions of the district, but the definitions of the districts.
Okay.
Eventually, there'd have to be, where are those districts going to go? So we have the B1 and B2 and, et cetera. So that's where that discussion is going to originate.
It's not going to be assessing which things are allowed in different.
Eventually, yes, that's a matrix aspect of it. So that'll be part of the discussion. I guess the first piece is there a desire to revise the current zoning districts? And really what we're dealing with is, a code that was a township code. So it really nobody's looked at it there haven't been any significant revision in those areas for a long time.
Any other public comments?
Oh, and I should say this, that's the first introductory piece. And I'm sure they'll have a few meetings on that. And then eventually, once planning and zoning is ready to do something with that, there'll be public hearing. So the public's invited to all of these, but the actual input part will come when it comes to public hearing. And then whatever is done there, then it comes to council for, yet again, another public hearing. So there's plenty of opportunity for citizen input.
Seeing no other public comment? We have a need for executive session this evening, I believe, to discuss confidential information of an applicant for economic development assistance.
Yes.
All right. Do I have a motion to enter executive session? Have a first and second?
Who was your second? Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Jones? Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Well, no decisions were made. We will convene after executive session.
I have to go straight back.